Welcome to the deep dive. We're here to plunge into those really captivating ideas, the ones that kind of stick with you and maybe reshape how you see the world.
That's the goal.
And today, wow, we're tackling a concept that's really, really out there. It's fascinating. Philosophers, physicists, pretty much anyone who thinks about time for decades.
He really does challenge our basic understanding of existence itself.
We're talking about the block universe.
Mm,
So imagine for a second your life isn't like a river, flowing forward, making new moments as you go.
right, the way we normally feel it.
Instead, picture it like this huge, unchanging, like a four-dimensional sculpture.
Okay.
Every single moment, your first laugh, your breakfast this morning,
Yeah.
even your very last breath, they
Yeah.
already exist. Not will exist. They're already there, fixed, like points on some kind of cosmic map.
Immutable points in space-time.
It's just, it's profound, right? And honestly, a bit disorienting.
Oh, definitely. But, some people find it strangely comforting, too.
Yeah, I can see that. But it forces you to rethink, well, everything you thought you knew about reality.
It's a complete, radical redefinition of how we experience time. You're not really moving through time, not in the way we feel it intuitively.
So what am I doing then?
Think of it more like your consciousness is experiencing these points, these fixed coordinates that already exist in this static structure. You experience them one after another, sequentially.
Like turning pages in a book that's already written.
Or like a spotlight moving across a huge stage, a four-dimensional stage. The whole play is already written, laid out, before and behind you.
But I only see the bit that's lit up right now.
Precisely. You're just illuminating the present moment. So our mission in this deep dive is to really explore the science behind this, because it does have scientific roots.
Right. It's not just philosophy.
Not just philosophy.
Right.
We want to look at the implications, which are huge, often unsettling, and some of the really mind-bending possibilities it opens up.
And maybe what it means for you listening right now.
Exactly. How it might shift your perception.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because block universe, it sounds like something straight out of sci-fi, doesn't it?
It really does.
But it has a more formal name, right? A philosophical term. What is this theory like fundamentally?
Yeah, absolutely. The formal name is eternalism.
Eternalism.
And it's a view of time that's really the opposite of how we usually experience things. Our intuition is much closer to something called presentism.
Presentism. That sounds like only the present is real.
Exactly. The idea that the past is gone, vanished, and the future hasn't happened yet, it doesn't exist. Only the now is real.
Which feels right, doesn't it?
It does. That's our everyday experience. But internalism says, no, time isn't this dynamic, flowing thing where moments appear and disappear.
So what is it then, according to eternalism?
It's treated as a dimension, a fundamental dimension, just like the three spatial dimensions we know, height, width, depth.
Okay, so length, width, height, and duration. Time is the fourth dimension.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And what's really fascinating is that this isn't just some abstract philosophical idea someone cooked up.
No.
No.
Yeah.
Many of the actual mathematical formulas in relativity, especially the work Hermann Minkowski did, building on Einstein, they treat time exactly like a geometric dimension.
Wow. Okay, so it's baked into the physics.
It really is.
Yeah.
When physicists use space-time diagrams, your whole path through time, they call it your world line, it's literally plotted like a line on a four-dimensional graph.
Whoa.
It's a fixed path on this huge map.
Huh. So, I don't travel up to being 6 feet tall. I just am at that coordinate in height.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You exist at a particular point in height or width. You don't travel through them. Eternalism says time is just like that. It's no different.
So my consciousness isn't a traveler.
It's more like that spotlight we mentioned, or maybe a scanner, reading one fixed moment, one coordinate at a time.
Which means the me from 10 years ago.
Is just as real as the you right now.
And the me in 10 years.
Also just as real. The you in 2025, the you in 2005, the you in 2045, they're all coexisting simultaneously within this larger four-dimensional structure. Equally real, equally there.
That's a huge shift. It really undermines that feeling of flow, doesn't it? The constant moving forward.
Completely.
To really get my head around it, I keep coming back to that analogy you mentioned, the film strip. That seems helpful.
That's a really good one.
Like, you take an old movie reel, right? Every single frame, every single moment of the movie, it's already printed on that strip, from the beginning credits to the end.
The entire story exists statically on the celluloid.
And when you run it through the projector, you're just seeing one frame after another really fast.
Yeah, and that creates the illusion of motion of a story unfolding in time.
But the strip itself isn't moving or changing, just the projector light scanning across it.
Exactly.
So the block universe theory is saying our reality might be like that. The whole movie of my life is already complete, already filmed and developed.
That's the idea. And your consciousness, your experience of now, is just the playback, moment by moment.
Like my personal life movie is already streaming and I'm just watching it unfold.
Yeah, or experiencing the stream. And that analogy is great because it shows how you can get the feeling of flow, the experience of dynamism, from something that's fundamentally static underneath.
Right. It's not that nothing's happening.
No, the happening is the sequential experience of these moments that already exist. The frames aren't moving, your perception is.
Okay. Now, you said this isn't just, some philosophers dreaming this up. It has real roots in science.
Absolutely. Deep roots.
And this is where it gets really wild, right? Because it connects directly to Albert Einstein.
Yes. His theories of relativity are fundamental to this whole idea.
So what was it in relativity that sort of cracked open the door for this?
One of the absolute critical insights from special relativity is something called the relativity of simultaneity.
Okay, sounds complicated.
It is a bit mind-bending, but the core idea is this. Whether two events happen at the exact same time depends on who's observing them.
Right, so simultaneous for me might not be simultaneous for you if we're moving differently.
Exactly. The classic example is the train. If you're standing on a platform and lightning strikes both ends of a moving train carriage, simultaneously from your perspective.
Okay.
Someone sitting in the middle of that train carriage, because they're moving towards one strike and away from the other, they will actually see the lightning strike the front of the train before it strikes the back.
Ah, because the light from the front has less distance to travel to reach them by the time it hits.
Precisely. So what's simultaneous for the person on the platform isn't simultaneous for the person on the train.
And neither perspective is more correct than the other.
No. That's the crucial bit. There is no absolute universal now, no master clock for the universe that we all share. Our intuition is based on that idea of a universal clock, but relativity says, nope, that's not how it works.
The now is personal.
It's personal.
Yeah.
It's relative.
Wow. Okay, that alone is pretty hard to grasp. But how do we get from no universal now to the block universe, to the idea that everything already exists? Einstein himself said something about this, didn't he?
He did. He famously wrote, "The distinction between past, present, and future is only a stubbornly persistent illusion."
Which sounds very block universe-y.
It really does. And the logical step, the bridge, goes like this. If there's no objective universal now, then how can any moment truly cease to exist? If your now can be someone else's past, and my now could be someone else's future, depending on how we're moving relative to each other.
Okay, I see. What does gone even mean then?
Exactly. It implies that all moments past, present, future, they must all be equally real, equally there in the fabric of space-time.
Because there's no universal present for them to fade away from.
Precisely. There's no universal clock ticking. There's no global flow of time carrying everything from the future through the present and into the past like one big river.
So it stops feeling like a river.
And starts feeling much more like that static landscape, that frozen block, a four-dimensional reality.
And this isn't just an interpretation, you're saying. It comes out of the math.
It's a direct consequence of the mathematical structure of space-time that relativity describes. The equations themselves treat time as this geometric dimension, woven together with space. Events are like points on a map, not moments rushing by.
Okay, so if this is true, even potentially true, if the future is already out there, fixed in this cosmic block, what does that mean for us? For our lives, our sense of self? This feels like it changes absolutely everything.
Oh, the implications are staggering.
Yeah.
Absolutely staggering. And the first one everyone jumps to, the real elephant in the room, is free will.
Right. If it's already written, did I really choose to have coffee this morning, or was it just programmed in?
That's the multi-billion-dollar question, isn't it? If every choice, every thought, every action is already a fixed point in this 4D block, are we just passengers? Is choice an illusion?
It feels like it has to be, right?
Well, this is where philosophers really get into it. There's a huge debate. Some, called incompatibilists, say, yeah, if the universe is deterministic like this, then free will, as we normally think of it, the ability to genuinely choose otherwise, is impossible.
Okay, that makes sense.
But then you have others, the compatibilists, who argue differently. They say, okay, maybe the future is fixed, but our experience of choosing, our subjective feeling of agency, that's still real and meaningful within that fixed structure.
How does that work? If the outcome is fixed, how is the choosing real?
The idea is that your conscious deliberation, the feeling of weighing options, the act of deciding that, is the process by which that fixed future point comes about in your experience. Your choice is an illusion of choice. It's the necessary mechanism within the block that connects the past you to the future you at that point.
So my choosing is the pathway, even if the destination is set.
Exactly. It reframes agency. You're not creating the path out of nothing, but your act of choosing is the path itself, an essential part of the block's structure. It's a subtle but important distinction.
Huh. That's tricky. But it also makes me think about other weird experiences. Like, what about déjà vu? That feeling is so strange.
Right. That uncanny sense of, I've been here before, even when you know you haven't.
Usually we just dismiss it as a brain glitch, right? A memory misfire.
That's the standard explanation.
Yeah.
But if you look at it through the block universe lens, what if it's not a glitch? What if it's a sort of resonance?
Resonance with what?
With a future event that you're already connected to in this block. Maybe your consciousness momentarily aligns, just for a flicker, with a future coordinate it's destined to experience, like your internal scanner skips through a frame and then jumps back.
Giving you that weird echo of familiarity.
Exactly. It's purely speculative, of course, but it fits the model in an interesting way.
And what about pushing it further? Things like precognition, seeing the future.
Yeah, again, highly controversial, often dismissed. But theoretically, within a block universe, if the future already exists.
Then seeing it isn't inherently impossible.
Right. Maybe it's not about predicting something that will happen, but somehow perceiving something that is happening just at a different temporal coordinate. Like information leaking across the block, or an unconscious reading of nearby frames in your life's film strip.
Still sounds pretty out there, but the framework allows for it, theoretically.
It shifts the question from how can you see the future to how could information from one existing point reach another? Still a huge question, but different.
Okay, and here's the one that really lands heavily for me. The implication for, well, for the end, for death.
That's often the most profound implication people grapple with.
If the whole timeline exists, then my death. It's already there, a fixed point.
According to eternalism, yes.
Sure.
Your death, your legacy, your grandkids' lives.
Yeah.
It already exists as part of this immense static block of space-time.
So it's not something that will happen.
It's something that is happening, has happened, or will happen, depending on your perspective, your coordinate within the block. The you experiencing your final moments is just as real, just as much a part of the block as the you experiencing this conversation right now.
Wow.
Every version of you, from birth to death, is equally real, eternally woven into this structure.
That puts a completely different spin on permanence, doesn't it? No moment is ever truly lost.
Exactly. It suggests a kind of immortality, not of consciousness necessarily, but of your entire existence as a pattern within space-time.
And like you said, that could be comforting or deeply unsettling.
It really depends on your perspective. Does the idea of everything being fixed and eternal feel like peace or like a cage?
Yeah. Okay, so we've talked philosophy implications, but you mentioned scientific roots. What actual science hints that this isn't just a wild idea? Because it still feels pretty theoretical.
Right, and it's crucial to be clear. The block universe itself isn't proven science. It's a theoretical framework, an interpretation. But there are real-world phenomena, things we actually measure and observe that make it feel, well, eerily plausible. They support the underlying concepts.
Okay, like what? What's the hard evidence or the closest thing to it?
The most solid, absolutely undeniable evidence comes from time dilation.
Which we mentioned earlier from relativity.
Exactly. And this isn't theory anymore. This is engineering reality. GPS satellites have to account for it constantly, or they wouldn't work.
Because time runs slightly faster for them up in orbit compared to us on the ground.
Yes, due to weaker gravity and their high speed. We also see it with astronauts on the ISS. They age just a tiny bit slower. Atomic clocks flown on jets measure different times than ones on the ground.
So time literally doesn't tick at the same rate everywhere.
It absolutely does not. There is no universal tick-tock. Time is fluid, it's relative, it stretches and shrinks depending on gravity and motion.
And how does that support the block universe?
Because it shows that time isn't separate from space. It's interwoven with it into a single entity space-time that can bend and warp. It supports the idea of time being a dimension, part of this malleable fabric, rather than just an independent forward-marching process.
Okay, so the flexibility of time points towards it being part of a geometric structure.
That's a good way to put it. It fits the picture of a unified space-time block much better than a universal river.
What else? Are there weirder things?
Oh yeah. Things get much weirder when you bring in quantum mechanics, like the delayed choice quantum experiments.
Delayed choice. Sounds paradoxical already.
They are truly mind-bending. Basically, experiments show that a choice made by an observer now seems to affect how a particle, like a photon, behaved in the past.
Wait, what?
Okay, simplifying hugely.
Uh,
Imagine a photon has to go through an apparatus where it could behave either like a wave, spreading out, or a particle, taking a specific path.
okay, wave or particle.
You set up detectors after the photon has already passed that decision point. And the choice you make now about which detectors to use, whether to measure its wave nature or its particle nature, seems to determine whether the photon acted like a wave or a particle back when it went through the apparatus.
So my present action changes its past behavior.
It appears that way. It completely breaks our standard idea of linear cause and effect, cause before effect. It hints that maybe the past and future are more entangled, maybe influencing each other, or maybe they're both just fixed parts of this block, and the measurement just reveals the pre-existing state along that path.
Wow. That really does mess with your head. It's like the outcome was already known somehow.
It certainly challenges simple linear causality. And then there's quantum entanglement.
Ah, yes, and Einstein's spooky action at a distance.
That's the one. You have two particles linked and tangled. Measure a property of one, say its spin, and the other particle instantly takes on a correlated spin, no matter how far apart they are. Billions of miles, potentially.
Instantly. Faster than light.
Faster than light. There's no signal traveling between them, carrying the information. That's forbidden by relativity for information transfer.
So how do they know?
That's the spookiness. It's as if space and time just don't separate them in the normal way. Within the block universe idea, maybe it's because they aren't truly separate entities connected by a signal.
They're just different points within the same underlying unified reality.
Exactly. Like 2 points on a single piece of fabric, you touch one. The other is intrinsically part of the same whole. Their correlation is built into the structure of the block itself, not transmitted across it. It suggests a deep interconnectedness of all points in space-time.
Okay, so time dilation shows time is flexible like a dimension. Delayed choice messes with past-future causality. And entanglement suggests everything might be interconnected instantly within a unified whole.
Those are some of the key scientific phenomena that, while not proving the block universe, definitely lend it a certain eerie plausibility. They fit the picture surprisingly well.
It really helps to have these concrete, even if bizarre, scientific hooks. But sometimes, to really feel the impact, stories help too. Pop culture seems fascinated by this stuff.
Oh, absolutely. Storytelling is a powerful way to explore these abstract concepts and their emotional weight. And some stories get it weirdly right, capturing the feeling of it.
I think my absolute favorite, the one that just nails the emotional core of living in a sort of block universe, is the film Arrival.
A fantastic example. Denis Villeneuve, 2016.
Yeah. The main character, Louise, the linguist, by learning this alien language that isn't linear.
She starts to perceive time non-linearly, too.
Exactly. She experiences these flashes, her future, her past, her present, all kind of bleeding together, all equally real. She interacts with her future knowledge in the present.
And the film portrays it with such melancholy and beauty. Knowing the future, the joys and the immense sorrows, doesn't stop her from living it, from making the choices that lead there.
It's such a moving portrayal of experiencing time as this complete whole, where beginning and end are simultaneously present. It really captures that internal struggle, the weight of it all.
It absolutely does. It focuses on the personal, emotional journey within that non-linear perception.
And then for a more maybe literal visual, Interstellar.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
Christopher Nolan, Cooper in the Tesseract.
Right. He ends up inside this construct within a black hole, this four-dimensional representation of his daughter's bedroom across time.
Yeah, physical space where time is laid out like a spatial dimension.
And he can literally look at different moments of her life, like looking through windows into different times. And he influences the past by sending messages through gravity.
It's a very direct visualization of the block universe concept, all moments coexisting and potentially accessible, laid out like locations on a map he can navigate.
Even if it takes a black hole and a tesseract to do it.
Well, yes, extraordinary means. But it illustrates the core idea beautifully.
And then there's that German Netflix series, Dark. That one just dives headfirst into the complexities.
Oh, Dark is a masterclass in fixed timelines and paradoxes. The whole town is trapped in this incredibly intricate time loop, no clear beginning or end.
Characters are constantly meeting their past and future selves, influencing things that already happened or will happen. It gets so tangled.
And what Dark does so well is hammer home the feeling of inescapability. Every action, every choice just seems to reinforce the loop. It's a dizzying dance through a fixed, predetermined timeline. You really feel the weight of the block universe pressing down on those characters.
Yeah, the bootstrap paradoxes, the causal loops. It's intense. It makes free will feel utterly impossible in that world.
It really leans into the deterministic side of eternalism. And one more, maybe less known but really effective, the video game Outer Wilds.
I've heard about that one, the time loop game.
Exactly. You're stuck in a 22-minute loop before the sun explodes. You explore this solar system, die and wake up again, but you retain the knowledge you gained.
So you learn more with each loop.
Yes. You uncover secrets by reliving the cycle, piecing together this ancient mystery. The genius is how it makes you feel the block universe almost. You're constantly re-experiencing these fixed events as predetermined catastrophe, but your understanding grows.
So there's agency and discovery even within a fixed loop.
Precisely. It viscerally expresses that disorienting, haunting, but also powerful feeling of living within a repeating structure, where knowledge is the key to navigating the fixed events. It's brilliant.
So pop culture definitely helps us grapple with the sheer weirdness of it all. But let's pull back from the science and the stories. What about the really deep personal philosophical impact? If this is real, how does it change how we see ourselves?
Well, that's where it gets truly profound, moving beyond just an intellectual puzzle. Think about this idea of the eternal self.
Eternal self.
If all moments exist, then you at every age exist. The child you were, the teenager, the adult you are now, the elderly person you might become. They aren't just memories or possibilities, they are.
All existing simultaneously in this block.
Exactly. So in a sense, you're already every version of yourself that ever was or will be. Your consciousness isn't really traveling through time.
It's just located at different points, like the spotlight moving across the stage again.
That's a good way to think about it. Your awareness is temporarily focused on one coordinate, illuminating the now, but the entire you across time is part of the static stage.
Which suggests a kind of immortality, like you said before. Not consciousness continuing, but my entire existence being a permanent fixture in reality.
Yeah, it's a permanent pattern in the four-dimensional tapestry.
Okay, but that brings us right back to choice, doesn't it? If every version of me already exists and the path is set, what about agency? Are my decisions just window dressing on a predetermined path? Or do they still matter somehow?
It's the core tension. Our choice is just that illusion of forward momentum we talked about, the feeling of making things happen when they were already set.
It feels like they must be if the block is fixed.
Or, again, coming back to that compatibilist view, maybe our choices are the very engine of that fixed reality. Maybe they're the essential component that makes the path exist as a path taken by a conscious agent.
So the choice isn't an illusion, it's the definition of that moment on the timeline.
Perhaps. It challenges our deep intuition about what agency means. Does it mean the ability to genuinely alter an open future? Or does it mean being the conscious cause of the event within a fixed framework? Eternalism pushes us towards the latter.
Which is, yeah, still hard to fully accept emotionally. It feels less free.
It definitely clashes with our subjective experience of freedom. And the most profound clash, perhaps, is with our view of death.
Right. We usually see it as the end. Full stop. Cessation.
The final curtain.
Yeah.
But in the block universe view,
it's just another coordinate, another point on the map.
Exactly. The you at the moment of death exists just as eternally, just as much a part of the block as the you being born or the you listening now.
And that reaction, it's so personal. For some, that might be incredibly comforting.
Immensely. Taking away the fear of annihilation, the terror of non-existence, knowing every moment is preserved.
But for others, maybe deeply unsettling, like there's no escape, no true end, just this eternal static existence.
Yes. It removes the narrative arc of a journey with a beginning, middle, and a definitive end. It replaces it with a static object. Comforting or disturbing, it's a radical shift.
Okay, let's really push the boat out now. Let's get into the purely speculative, mind-bending stuff that kind of spins out of this whole concept. Not science, just possibility.
All right, let's stretch our minds. Where do you want to start?
What if? What if you've already lived your future and what you're experiencing now is just catching up with the memory of it?
Ooh, okay. The pre-recorded life idea. Yeah, that one does make your head spin.
Like our current now is just the playback button finally reaching this point on a recording that's already complete.
It flips causality completely. Experience becomes retrieval, not creation. Our sense of anticipation, worry, surprise. Maybe that's just our consciousness slowly accessing the preloaded data of our own future.
It makes memory seem like it's not just about the past, but about accessing this whole fixed landscape of our lives.
A truly disorienting thought. It undermines our whole sense of time zero.
Okay, here's another one. Dreams. We usually think of them as subconscious processing, random neural firing.
Right, the brain cleaning house or consolidating memories.
But what if, in the block universe view, dreams are something else? What if your consciousness isn't just wandering randomly, but it's momentarily surfacing at different coordinates in the block?
Like glimpsing other frames of your reality.
Yeah.
Or maybe even alternate possibilities if you consider branching timelines within the block.
Yeah. Could that explain why some dreams feel so intensely real? Like memories of things that haven't happened? Maybe you're tapping into a different point on your world line or an adjacent one?
Pure speculation, of course, but it's a fascinating way to recontextualize the dream state within this framework. Instead of internal simulation, it's external access.
And maybe the ultimate one. Well, look, the flow itself is the illusion.
The very sensation of time passing.
Yeah. That constant feeling of moving forward from past to future, what if that's just generated by our consciousness, like an artifact of how our brains process information?
Like the movie projector analogy again. 24 static frames per second looks like smooth motion.
Exactly. Maybe new moments aren't constantly being created. Maybe reality is static, and our brains just process this static information sequentially, creating the narrative, the feeling of flow that we call life.
That really does blur the line between perception and reality, doesn't it? Our subjective experience of time might be purely an emergent property of our minds interacting with a fundamentally timeless universe.
Our now is just the edge of our perceptions scanning across the block.
The ultimate illusion, perhaps.
Okay, we've gone pretty far out there, but we have to pull it back a bit. This is an accepted fact. No theory this huge comes without major criticisms, right?
Absolutely not. It's elegant, it fits some data surprisingly well, but it faces significant challenges, and many scientists and philosophers remain unconvinced. A core issue is that it's incredibly hard, maybe impossible, to prove experimentally with current tech.
And what are the biggest theoretical hurdles? Where does it clash with other science?
A major sticking point is quantum mechanics, especially that idea of wave function collapse we touched on.
The randomness, the probabilities collapsing into reality upon measurement.
Exactly. Quantum theory suggests that reality, at its most fundamental level, involves genuine chance, genuine indeterminacy. Possibilities exist until a measurement forces an outcome.
Which sounds very unblock-like. It sounds dynamic, unfolding.
Precisely. It suggests reality is being written, or at least decided, moment by moment, which clashes directly with the idea of a completely static, predetermined block where all outcomes are already fixed. If quantum outcomes are truly probabilistic, how can the future already be set in stone?
That's a fundamental tension. You can't easily have both true quantum randomness and a fully fixed block.
It's a major area of debate in the foundations of physics. How do relativity and quantum mechanics truly reconcile on this point? We don't have the final answer.
And this brings us back to that philosophical debate too, right? Eternalism versus presentism.
Yes, presentism is the view that only the present moment is real. The past is gone, truly gone, and the future is unrealized, yet to be created.
Which, let's be honest, feels much more like how we actually experience the world.
It absolutely aligns with our intuition. Events unfold, choices seem to genuinely create new paths, the past feels finished. Presentism captures that direct experience. Eternalism asks us to believe our deepest intuitions about time's flow are fundamentally mistaken.
That's a big ask.
It is. And another huge puzzle is consciousness itself.
How does our feeling of now fit into this static block?
Exactly. If we're just scanning fixed points, why do we have this incredibly vivid, singular, subjective sense of being in the present? What generates that feeling of progression, of experiencing things as they happen, if they've already happened in the block?
Yeah, where does the spotlight beam come from? And why does it only shine here?
That remains one of the hardest questions for a pure eternalist view. How does subjective awareness arise and seem to move through this static structure? Does consciousness somehow select or generate the now? Or is consciousness itself just another fixed pattern within the block? We don't know.
So lots of deep, unanswered questions remain.
Definitely. It's far from a settled issue.
Okay, as we start to wrap up this truly mind-bending deep dive, we wanted to leave everyone listening with a final thought experiment, something to chew on.
Yeah, something personal to take away. Imagine this. If you could somehow zoom out, step outside of time, and see your entire life laid out as a single, fixed object, a complete timeline.
From your very first breath to your very last.
Yeah.
All the highs, all the lows, triumphs, regrets, joy, sorrow, all just there, complete.
How would seeing that, knowing that, change how you live right now in this moment you're currently experiencing?
Would you still worry so much about the future, knowing it's already set? Would you fear what's coming?
Would it paralyze you, thinking nothing you do matters? Or would it liberate you?
Maybe realizing the future isn't waiting to happen, it's already there. Could that bring a strange kind of peace?
Could it free you from anxiety about the unknown? Or maybe could it lead to an even deeper appreciation for the present moment?
Knowing that this moment right now is a fixed, unchangeable, eternal part of your unique story, part of the permanent cosmic structure.
Making every single experience, good or bad, precious married, precisely because it's an indelible part of who you are in this four-dimensional reality.
It really is a concept that sits at the intersection of hard science, deep philosophy, and just existential mystery, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. Endlessly debatable, endlessly fascinating. A reminder that reality might be far stranger than our everyday intuition allows.
And it just opens up so many other avenues to explore, too.
Oh, definitely. Time travel paradoxes, the nature of consciousness itself, how memory shapes reality, fate versus free will.
Yeah.
You could go down endless rabbit holes from here.
So we're really curious to hear what you think. Does this block universe idea resonate with you at all? Does it feel right? Or does it just completely blow your mind and feel utterly wrong?
Yeah, let us know what stood out, what questions it sparked for you.
Thanks so much for joining us on this deep dive into the very fabric of time.
It's been fascinating. Until next time, keep questioning everything.